And we're rolling. How are you doing today, Jenny?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. We just got back from the summer, or it's the East Side Summer Festival or something like that.
I just drove by that.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. You should check it out if you have time. We went last year, and I think it was 2 days, and then this year they changed it to 1 day. But yeah, there's a lot of people down there, some good food, and some events and everything. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely will have to check that out.
Yeah. So anyways, tell me about yourself. Are you from Lansing? Well, first I want to say that Katie's your sister, and she was previously on the podcast.
Yes, Katie is my.
Are you guys twin sisters?
No, she's my baby sister. So there is 7 of us.
Okay.
And I'm third to the oldest, and she is the baby with her twin, Kathy. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was 8 when they were born.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember changing their diapers and babysitting them.
So do you guys have a good relationship, or is it more of like the mother-hen type of relationship?
You know, with there being 7 girls, we all have very different personalities and very different experiences and perspectives. I like to say that we're close when it matters, and that's really important, you know. So I would say yes, we all have our differences. You know, we've been through a lot, but we are close when it matters, and that's what's important.
That is important.
Yeah.
And she shared a little bit about your guys' past when she was on the podcast about your mom and everything. And I could imagine that going through something like that would kind of fortify your guys' relationship a little bit.
And complicate it. So going through trauma, family, again, different perspectives, different experiences, stuff like that. And also the healing process, you're at different ages, you're going to heal in different ways. So yes, it brings you closer and tears you apart. It brings you closer. And, that's kind of what, I guess, trauma and coming from a dysfunctional family does. But again, we're definitely close when it matters. And that's really important for us as sisters and our children.
That is important. I think it's awesome to be able to talk to 2 different sisters from the same family who experience the same thing and see that you guys are, essentially killing it. You guys are doing great. You guys are successful in the sense where, like most people who experience some of those things go down these dark paths and they let that define them for the rest of time.
Right.
And you guys seem to be using it as a way to kind of catapult yourself into a better mindset and into helping other people.
Yeah, I definitely would say that that's not how it started, but it's
never
definitely never does. So I was 15 when my mom passed away. So I was actually the oldest at home at that time. My 2 older sisters were no longer living in the house, and so being the oldest at home after a tragedy, and a trauma, that was kind of hard for me to actually function and go to school. So I didn't really take the right path. I actually dropped out of school when I was 15. Wow. So, I was the first one in the house after my mom had passed, and I was the one that had to call 911 and all of that. And so there's lots of trauma that comes from that and knowing where to go after that. The very first day I went back to school after my mom had passed, there was a person in the attendance room, office that basically said to me, I heard your mom, shot herself or blew her head off or something. I can't remember the exact term, but that was the very first person I had encountered. And I was like, what am I doing back at the school? Like,
somebody who worked in the attendance office?
No, it was a student.
Oh, a student.
It was a student. They don't know what they're doing when they're teenagers. So it just made it hard to go back to school.
Yeah.
So I had decided that it was too hard. And, my father, who we were, living with after, that we were still with after my mom had passed, he was not in a good place either. And he, we didn't have a good relationship and stuff like that. And he, was an alcoholic growing up, and he had a hard time going to work. And so he's like, okay, if you don't want to go to school, you need to work. I'm like, okay. And he said, you need to help me pay bills.
Whoa.
So I had just turned 16. I was working at Olympic Broil. That was my first job. At 14, I started working there. And he said, if you work, if you don't go to school, you're working and you're going to help me pay bills. And, yes, you think it's a dad that's like telling you that because he wants to teach you something. No, he needed bills paid because he wasn't going to work, like he should have. Money wasn't really coming in steadily. He did work for, Fisher Body, so he did have a decent job, but he had called in way too much, so he wasn't getting, the funds that he needed to get.
Was it because of the loss of your mom?
Yeah, I would say, it was a very, I guess, tumultuous childhood to where, he was an alcoholic. There was abuse in the house. He actually had just moved back into the house after being in jail for domestic violence.
Oh, wow.
So he wasn't living at the home. He was there. I mean, I can't say just moved back in, but he was only there for so many months because before that he had went to jail and was living somewhere else. So, it was just not a great time, with my mom letting this abuser back in and, her going through her own depression and stuff like that. And so, we're left with this father who wasn't living there before for a little while because he had went to jail and now being left with him because our mother had passed away. So, of course, I was struggling trying to go back to school, and I wanted to still, help provide, so I worked full time at the Lansing Mall. Those little kiosk stores, like the little kiosk, like carts in the middle.
Wow.
They would hire 16-year-olds during the day. They didn't care if you didn't go to school. So I worked there full time, and, my dad would hand me, utility bills like, here, pay this,
Wow.
And, I wasn't going to school. Well, when I turned 18, I had to go. I was like, I'm out of here. Like I left. I just had to go find myself. About a year after I had moved out, I had met my husband, who I'm married to now, and we kind of both were not in a great place. And we started dating and got pregnant pretty quick with our oldest. And he, I like to say that my husband and I saved each other, but so did our children. Our children saved us. So we both decided that we really wanted to change our life, and we wanted to stop the cycle of, our childhood. And especially me, like that's really been really big for me. I wanted to stop that cycle.
Were you noticing behaviors in yourself that you didn't like?
Yes, absolutely. Like, just definitely not making great choices, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then when we had our first son, Quentin, we were like, no, we're definitely gonna do, right by him. And we want to make sure that we're, living a positive life for our kids. So I kind of immersed myself into being a mom. I wanted to be a better mom than what my mother was to me. And, we wanted to be better parents. So I decided to go back to school, and I didn't want to get my GED. I wanted that diploma. Well, it was kind of a crazy thing. It was the same adult ed, which was Waverly East. It's the same adult ed that my mom had tried to go to multiple times to get her GED, because my mom also was a high school dropout. So I wanted so badly to get that diploma, not the GED. I wanted to finish it. So I actually graduated with a diploma 4 days before I gave birth to my second son.
Whoa.
I know. But I was determined to get that high school diploma. So I got that, and then after that, I just really did immerse myself into being a mom. And I'm proud to say that I have 3 boys. Quentin, the oldest, he graduated from U of M. He works for Yahoo Sports.
Very cool.
My middle son goes to Oakland University, and he's doing great. He's got 1 year left. He's actually my nonprofit's intern. So that's super exciting. He's working on our website and our app. And then my youngest son just graduated from East Lansing High School, and he's going to be attending MSU. So we're definitely house divided, U of M, Oakland.
That's cool, though.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
MSU.
I think I think it's really cool that you went back to school and you already had 1 kid and you were pregnant with another.
Yeah.
I mean, because most people would let that define them. Like, oh,
Right.
I'm too busy. I can't do it.
Right.
I just can't do it.
Right.
And I think, like, for a lot of people, when they hear about like a high school dropout, they just think, wow, that person's a loser.
Yeah.
But then they don't really realize that, that person might have had a lot that they were dealing with. And for you to actually go back and get it, I think that, I mean, in my perspective, looking at your story, it seemed like that was like the start of you kind of like setting up a future for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And setting the precedents for my children.
Yeah.
So when my youngest graduated high school, big tears, because it's like, high school dropout and all three of your children are graduating from high school. Like that was a really big thing for me. That was really exciting. And now to have all of them go to college, my oldest son was the first in our immediate family, so his parents and both grandparents, to actually get a college degree. So that's like huge.
Wow.
And so defining, breaking that cycle is big.
That is huge.
Yeah, and they're great. They're so great. And they help me a lot with my nonprofit, so that's really exciting too.
When did you decide that you wanted to start this nonprofit, and what exactly is the nonprofit?
Yeah, so I started it a little over 2 years ago, and I was working for the state at the time, and I have always wanted to do something with mental health. And since my children were getting older and I was thinking about, what I wanted to do, what do you want to be when you grow up, after you're a mom? And so I said, I definitely want to do something with mental health. And, I've always struggled, with different things with mental health. I have a lot of friends, and I have encountered a lot of people that have dealt with different things with mental health. And it actually does run in our family, obviously, with our mom taking her own life. And she had struggled with depression before. So I'm like, I want to make a difference, not just in my own family. I had already done the, stopping the cycle, they're stopping the abuse. I didn't, I was not one of those abusive parents or, what I mean?
Right.
I really wanted to stop that and, raise them in a positive way. And so I'm like, how can I go beyond my children and my family and help other children? Because I was that forgotten child. The school just let me drop out and nobody really cared. And, it's like you get kind of stuck and you're in this, poor family that has, tragedy and trauma, and you kind of get lost, and, you don't have somebody telling you like you matter, like you can live a positive life, like you can change that cycle.
And
yourself.
I think a lot of people in those institutions like schools and churches or whatever thing you're a part of, when something like that happens and they see that you're the poor family who just lost your mom and that you're not going to school anymore, they're like, well, she's not going to make anything of herself anyways. Yep. So why even try?
Yeah. And that's really sad.
Yeah.
Because it took a lot in me to try to change things, try to do things differently and look toward the future, like wanting to change that, the cycle of being the high school dropout and coming from an abusive family, stuff like that, and trauma, and wanting to change that. So it started when, I noticed how great my children were turning out and how it can happen. Like, you can change your life, you can live in a positive way, but you do have to choose positive outlets. So Positive Somebody, that's my nonprofit. And Positive Somebody comes from, one, you are somebody. You're not nobody, and you are somebody, and that you can have a positive life. And really having a positive life has so much to do with mental health. You have to choose coping in a positive way and having that positive mindset to be able to live that positive life. Yeah. And how's that going to start if you don't have the tools? You're never taught. You're never taught how to cope. You're never taught, that you are somebody and that you can like live a positive life. Yeah. So I'm like, where do I get started? Like, how do I get started? And I have my high school diploma, but I never went to college. I don't have a degree. Because after I did get my high school diploma, I was a mom. I worked part-time, different places. My husband, worked full-time, but, I just wanted so badly to be there with them and be a good mom. So that's what I focused on. So getting started really was talking to people, networking, talking to teachers and psychologists and different things like, how can I get started? Does this ideal sound good? Talking about different things. And so Positive Somebody, what we do is we distribute positive coping tools to schools and other organizations. So our positive packs, which I I brought one for each of your children. But they're so awesome. They have journals, because journal writing is really important. They have other things in them like fidgets, positive affirmations, breathing techniques, how to journal. We have different like journal prompts and stuff that they can do. We have so many different types of fidgets, because that's one thing that I've learned is that one fidget's not going to work for the next person, or one positive outlet's not going to work for the next person. So we, our positive packs have fidgets, journals. We have a breathe stone, which is super awesome.
A what?
A breathe stone.
What is that?
So the breathe stone and our breathe stone poem. So the breathe stone is literally a stone, and it says breathe.
Does it just remind you?
It's, it's like have you ever heard of the worry stones?
I don't think so.
So the worry stone's like when you're, like anxious or something, you want something to be able to, rub or whatever. So we have the breathe stone, and it's the breathe stone poem that it comes with. And it says, I am your breathing stone. Keep me near when life starts to fill you with worry and fear. Hold me in your hand, nice and tight. Close your eyes, breathe, and say, begone worries and fears. Everything's going to be all right. And so that's one thing that's in our positive packs. So we distribute positive packs. We're in 10 schools in Michigan right now.
Wow.
Yeah, and we are looking to expand. So we distribute them to teachers and counselors and social workers. And we also are in works right now with the Lansing Police Department. I actually have a police sergeant on my board.
Oh, very cool.
So we're hoping, and we're this close to having the police patrol vehicles carry our positive packs in the trunks of them.
Oh, wow.
So when they do encounter children out in the field, they have something to give them. And
that's cool.
Yeah, to like help them, know obviously that there's positive coping that they can do. And that was another thing, to try to reduce the negative coping. So that's like addiction and violence and all of that. And
that's a really good idea, to give it to police officers, because they're essentially the front line of the people who struggle the most.
Yes. And the police sergeant that's on my board, he said, what a great thing to be able to give to a child when you're, say, waiting for a social worker to come or something like that. And we have been in touch with the social workers too. So there's 3 social workers for the Lansing Police Department, and we've already got the okay for them to carry our positive packs. So that's super exciting.
Have you tried reaching out to like local foster care agencies or anything like that?
Yes. So we are, lots of things are in the works. So starting a nonprofit is definitely a labor of love. It kind of takes a long time if you don't have the means or the connections.
And you don't make money.
You don't
which
make,
is difficult.
You spend a lot of your own money, and that's fine, because it's like it's a passion.
Yeah.
So we just got our 501c public nonprofit last November.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's so exciting. And so now it's just trying to get, funding and get our name out there. We just had our very first event, which was the Family Mental Health Fun Day. And what that was, it was so amazing until we got rained out. We got rained out halfway through, so that was frustrating. But we had a really great turnout at the beginning. And what the Mental Health Fun Day is setting up stations. So we use weather emojis for our emotions. So that's another part of our nonprofit is, talking about emotions and regulating emotions. So we came up with our other emojis. So we have the sun, which is happy, content, feeling good. We have our cloud, which is like tired, you're sad, you're kind of feeling meh. We have our storm cloud, which is you're angry, you're upset, you're sad. We have our tornado, which means you're enraged, you're out of control, you're acting out. And then my favorite, we have the rainbow, and the rainbow means healing and recovery. So we had stations set up for each of those emotions, and the kids got to come, and we had big posters to talk about the weather emojis and the emotions. They got to play a game or do an activity, and then they got to fill their positive pack with all of the items that they love, that they can see themselves using for positive coping. And we had one of the activities was really great, was filling a sensory bottle. You fill it with rice, and you put 10 items in it, and then you, when you're upset, you shake it and find all the 10 of those items, because it kind of takes a while. Yeah.
It's a good way to distract yourself.
It is. It is, especially when you're like really upset and you're out of control. So That was really fun. And we had vendors come. We had some vendors drop out, but we had some vendors come. We had therapy place that come and talk about how important therapy is, can be. We had a yoga place come. We had the state police come. We had a DJ. We were playing music. And so
That was really cool.
it was a lot of fun.
I seen that. Yeah, I seen. I think Katie might have invited me to that.
Yeah.
I was busy that day though. But yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I recently just interviewed somebody. Her name was Vicky Maynard, something like that.
Okay.
I can't remember the organization that she works for, but it's a suicide prevention agency or
Is it
organization.
like Out of the Darkness, maybe?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know if she has her business card over there. But anyway, she was telling me that her and the organization put together like packets of information to pass out at schools for essentially like suicide prevention.
Yeah.
And they don't want that in the schools because they're afraid that it might influence people to commit suicide or to be suicidal.
Yeah. So I definitely see both sides. Like you definitely have to educate people on suicide, but I'll give you an example how it can be. And I hate to say the word contagious, but it's like, like they see it and they're like, oh, is that a solution, to my problem? When my oldest son was in high school, one year they had 2 girls take their own life. And one of the girls was earlier in the year. And then at the end of the year, the other girl, and on her social media post earlier in the year, the second girl that had taken her own life posted a couple of times about the first girl.
Whoa.
And so it's almost like you want to educate them on suicide, but you also want to give them other solutions. You know what I'm saying? That you don't want them, it's like the negative coping.
Right.
Like suicide is, a negative part of that. So
I understand the fear of wanting to talk or of talking about it in schools,
Right.
but I would think that it would be almost beneficial to have resources available and
Absolutely.
the tools available for people who are struggling like that.
Absolutely.
And I know that like your packets there, I mean, even though they're so simple, they're just simple things. I feel like it could be very beneficial to a lot of kids.
And on the back of our Breathe Stone card, we have the suicide prevention number.
Oh.
So it's like, you want to include that, but you don't want that to be the only thing.
Right.
And so I think maybe that's why schools are a little like, okay, what else are you going to give? So I definitely think it's important to, educate on suicide and stuff like that, but also
you don't want that to be the focus.
No, you want it to be more. And so, and I'm not even looking at it as a school standpoint. I'm looking at it as a mom standpoint and a survivor of suicide. Like you want other options, like that can't just be the only thing. And that's one thing with Positive Somebody. We want to partner with so many different nonprofits, just like our Family Fun Day, we want to partner. We're not in competition with each other. We want to partner with them to show that we're in this together. We're not going to, Positive Somebody's not going to supply everything that a school needs,
Right.
So I've had a meeting with Ellie's Place on partnering with them because we don't do grief counseling or anything like that. And so just bringing in all of those resources. So I would love to talk with the person that you spoke with before because it's really.
I think I hooked Katie up with her. I think they linked up, but I will link you guys up too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's kind of, and also too with kids, younger and older, you kind of have to be at their age level and their
Right.
mentality, like
Right.
what can they understand, what can they comprehend, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we're trying to focus our positive hacks on, their where they're at, mentally with their mental health, and so that's important too. You don't want to introduce things too early or
Right.
stuff like that.
Do you customize them based on age?
So, because we're a newer nonprofit, we have a lot of things coming, and we are working on our customized journal. And our customized journal is so awesome. We're so close to having it done. And it includes our weather emojis. So we have our journal pages, which has our weather emojis on there, and it says, how are you feeling today? Circle which one, how you're feeling. We have journal prompts in there and, positive affirmations, stuff like that. And then we also have coloring pages and drawing pages and positive word pages. We have breathing technique pages. We have,
cool.
stuff like that. It's not just about writing in a journal.
Right.
Because sometimes you don't want to write about your feelings. You want to draw about it, or you want to color it or something like that.
That's actually a really good idea. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It's like some people don't like to write, but I mean, a lot of people, most artists get rid of their anxiety, or they funnel their depression into their artwork.
Absolutely. I do the same.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point.
I make art, and I definitely, it's like all of my feelings and everything in there. Yeah. So
almost every artist that I've talked to on the podcast has something messed up with them. Like they've gone through some sort of depression or anxiety, or they have some sort of mental health issue that like helps them be as successful as they are as an artist. It's very interesting.
It's interesting too. I've thought about that, and I really believe that it has something to do with their thought process. When you go through, mental health issues or trauma or something like that, your perception is different, and you see things differently. It's almost like you feel differently. So yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, it gives you, depending on what you went through, everything you go through gives you a different perspective on life and different perspective on different situations or on people or on emotions, on anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. So, and that's, that I try to pour that into Positive Somebody. Everybody has the different type of, maybe one person is depressed and the other person has anxiety, or, stuff like that. You have to try to put the different perspectives in it. I am really excited that we have a new thing with Positive Somebody this year. And because we've been kind of trying to, when we do distribute the positive packs, and we try to get the feedback and stuff like that. Some teachers that get it for the younger kids, they're like, oh, they just think it's a bag of toys. And so it's like trying to reach, the different age levels. So this year we are starting our chapters for Positive Somebody. So our very first chapter is going into East Lansing High School.
Oh, wow.
And what it is like a school club. And I already have my student board members. And what they're going to be doing is the first semester, they're going to do activities. Like we're going to bring in Ellie's Place, and we're going to bring in yoga, and we're going to do, journals and just different things. So they're going to learn different positive coping, art and stuff like that. And then in turn, the second semester, it's going to be a community outreach club, and they're going to take the positive packs to the middle school and to the elementary schools.
Whoa.
And so
that's cool.
I know. And you know what? It wasn't even my ideal. It was a high school student's ideal. And she's the president of my first chapter. She's amazing. And so she said, why don't we, how can we get Positive Somebody in the high schools besides just the counseling center with the positive packs? And we sat down, we talked, and we bounced ideas off each other. And she's like, I would love to do this. And I'm like, oh my God, you're amazing. Like, thank you. And that's really, growing a nonprofit and growing, community outreach. You really need everybody's input and everybody's,
Well, I think that's important too for mental health, because especially today, like mental health, there's a mental health crisis, and especially
absolutely.
in the young kids and the younger population, with the advent of like social media and just their phones, and it's so easy to get depressed,
right?
And or be anxious or whatever it is. But when they have something that they can contribute to, and they're helping other people, and they're a part of this community in a sense that's helping other people and helping the community and helping people who are just like them, it gives them a reason, it gives them hope, and it gives them a way to be inspired and
not feel alone.
Yeah, it's a sense of community.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're excited about that.
That's cool.
To see how it's going to work out. And I think that, it kind of will help with the younger kids that think it's just a bag of toys if they have these high school students come in and present.
Show them how to use it.
Yeah. So it might just be, stick a little bit better in their mind when they go home with it.
So is it something that's going to be like an after school program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, after school program, but then the community outreach, we're going to work with the schools to see if they can go, to a classroom on, like their time during school. So a lot of the seniors, I know we talked about, they have like their free periods because they don't always have like a full schedule or something like that. So we're definitely going to work through that. It's kind of, just like building this, it's trial and error where,
Yeah.
it's what works and what doesn't. You kind of just add and subtract as you go.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Now, how do you guys get funding for this?
So I have a really great board. And so I think any nonprofit just starts off with friends and family and they kind of fund it. We are, now since we are 501c public nonprofit, we're trying to get grants and different things. We do a lot of just, little fundraisers here or there. In our family mental health fund day, we had like a silent auction, stuff like that, and we had people donate. So right now we have a few sponsors. One is OtterBase that has sponsored positive packs for us. Apple Market in the Groesbeck neighborhood.
Oh, cool.
Just it's just reaching out to the community right now. So it's a lot of community funding. We are really hoping to gain funding in the future from grants and stuff.
How much does it cost to put one of those together?
So with our customized journals, because that's what we're looking to do, because right now we have just just the plain journals. With our customized journals, it's probably going to be about $10 a bag.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and it's really because when you spend a lot of your own money on it, you're going to do everything you can
to make it cheap.
Well, I shop around. I try to get the best deal.
Yeah.
If it's on Amazon, I will message the company and I'm like, what if I buy 5? Can I get a better discount?
Oh.
And literally 9 times out of 10, they will respond back and say, yep, here's a code.
Wow.
Yes.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yes. You have to, and I put it out there, like we're a nonprofit and,
That's cool.
how much more of a discount can you give? And I've done that so much and people are willing. You have to put that out there.
That is cool. Mm-hmm. You should, I would say that you should get together with the Lansing libraries. I think that would be a good outlet too.
Yeah.
Because I know they help with a lot of local nonprofits and helping provide resources and stuff. That would be.
We're on the list for the United Way's next round of funding to apply for it. Not that we're going to get it, but we're on the list to be an applicant for the next one.
How difficult is it to apply for funding? Because I know some people that have nonprofits also, and they say that it's difficult.
It is so difficult. So we have been turned down twice for the City of Lansing grant.
The one that's going out right now?
Yes.
Wow.
And it goes out in June. They fund it in September. You have to apply for it in January or February. And I go to the meetings and I talk about Positive Somebody. We've been denied twice, and it's really for sustainability. The City of Lansing grant, they don't want to be the only one funding you. They want to see other big funders. So they fund people like the Boys and Girls Club and Community Mental Health and St. Vincent's, or Salvation Army, like stuff like that. So, I'm kind of in, the pond with these big fish, and I'm like this little fish trying to say, what about me? So I believe that third time's going to be a charm. So I'm applying again, this next year, and it's just going to take applying and applying, but it is really hard because you have so many big nonprofits that are already established, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you money. You're big and we already know you. We already know what you're going to use it for. And so right now we're still kind of in the mode where we have to prove ourselves. And to prove yourselves, you have to spend a lot of your own money and get your friends and family and local businesses to help you.
So is there a way for people to donate money?
Yeah, so our website, positivesomebody.org, which my family is amazing. My children are amazing, and they help me with it. My oldest son, Quentin, and my middle son, Alden. Alden is our intern. They're doing a great job on our website, but there's a donate button, positivesomebody.org. So,
and if somebody wanted to put these together, could they donate those, or is it just strictly
we also have
funding?
We have a wish list on Amazon. So that's another way that they can donate. They can, purchase the fidgets and stuff like that. So there's lots of different ways that they can donate. We have a T-shirt, it's an ongoing fundraiser, so they can purchase one of our T-shirts or sweatshirts, and we get a portion of the proceeds from Sport Stops. Sport Stop is they're in Mason, Grand Ledge, and St. John's, and they have been a really great supporter for us. They printed T-shirts right here.
Cool. That is cool.
There is a shop button on our website. And so if you go to the shop button and purchase a t-shirt, Sport Stop will print it and ship it, and then they give us a portion of the proceeds.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What is your ultimate goal for Positive Somebody? Is it to be just a local nonprofit, or would it be to take it like globally?
I would love to eventually take it national. That would be my dream. Right now, I'm trying to focus on definitely getting it more than just the Lansing area. We're in Lansing and Saginaw area. I'll give you a quick rundown of my board. The president of my board is my sister, Jamie, another one of the 7. She has her master's in social work from MSU, and she's a social worker in Saginaw County. And so she has been a great resource for me and starting this, and just a continued support. She's been helping with, updating things and ideals and stuff like that. So she's the president of my board. She's been with me from the start. That's kind of like we're a family of mental health. Like we all want to change, the aspect of mental health in our community. But I have...
I'd say you guys are doing pretty good.
We're trying, we're trying. I have 2 teachers on my board. I have just people that are passionate that have come, from mental health, dealing with mental health issues, and they just want to change, make change too. I have a police sergeant, Brent Sorg. He's on my board. He's a Lansing police sergeant detective. I got to add that in there. And he's our liaison, and it's a lot for the Lansing Police Department. And it's just getting people involved that are just as passionate as I am and wanting to make change. So my hope for Positive Somebody and my goal is really to just change the conversation and to normalize it. And I brought the poem here that it started with me when I wanted to start it. It's a quote from Glenn Close, and she's an actress, and she actually is a big advocate for mental health. So she said, what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. That's so important. So my goal is to go nationally and make it to where mental health is not a shameful thing. You bring sunlight to it. Make it like this is a normal thing, and it actually can be a fun thing, because positive outlets are so fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely our goal is to be bigger than just the Lansing area someday.
I think that the talk of mental health has become more like open and nuanced, I guess. Yeah. I mean, whereas like maybe 5 to 10 years ago, it wasn't something that you would talk about.
Right.
And to talk about it was almost like a sign of weakness.
Yes. I think that, for me, being a survivor of suicide.
When you say survivor of suicide, do you mean your mom?
Yes.
Okay.
And I say that because there's different types of survivors. You survive your own, but I'm a survivor of suicide because I didn't, go down that path or let it define me. I didn't let, my little tattoo for my mom. Because when her story ended, it didn't end my story. Even though I was a child. And so I think that anybody that even just didn't have those thoughts themselves, if you have a loved one or something that took their own life, you're a survivor too, because you survived, them ending their story.
Yeah.
And so being a survivor of suicide, like I lost my train of thought, because I'm talking about,
we were talking about the openness and how people are.
So back then, when my mom, because it's been so long, I was 15, I'm 45 now. I don't really care to say my age. Most women have a problem with that. I don't really care. It was frowned upon. So I think it comes from suicide is considered a sin.
Yeah.
And so
in the religious realm.
Yes, in the religious realm. And so that played a big part too, and when it happened, because I think people don't like to talk about it because of that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's kind of like adultery. Nobody really wants to talk about
right.
It's like, oh, suicide. But it's kind of coming out of that. People are starting to talk about it more and not, I feel like I struggled with it because of the whole sin thing.
Are you religious? So
that's a whole nother podcast. I definitely am a believer. I'm a
Okay.
believer in God. I've had many struggles with churches over the years for many different reasons. I always refer back to the bumper sticker that says, God save me from your people. So I'm a firm believer that there is a God and there is a heaven and there is, I'm a firm believer in that. I'm very spiritual. My problem is religion.
Just
So-
the everything coped together under one umbrella,
Well, one umbrella,
or
it's
organized.
organized. It's, what happens to people in religion and their mindset. Religion often makes people more judgmental when you're not supposed to be judgmental.
Yeah.
And so I've just had a lot of, struggles with that. And again, that's a whole nother podcast, but I'll give you a quick little snippet. My mom used to drop us off at church. All 7 of us girls dropped us off at a Baptist church. She didn't go. My dad didn't go. So she would put us in a dress and drop us off at church and leave.
Wow.
And we were the poor kids. We were like the pity those kids type of thing. And so that was a struggle, and just how people treated us afterwards at the church where my mom had passed, and it being a sin, So
Almost like you guys were at fault for it. I mean, like it wasn't
more or less because it's a sin.
like a pity.
Like they didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to. It's I remember during my mom's funeral, the pastor saying, "Pray for her sins." Like
what?
And I'm just like, sins? Are you talking about because she took her own life? Like I had always struggled with that.
Wow, that is crazy. Why would he say that?
I don't know. I don't know. But I've had issues with other people in churches just being very judgmental.
Yeah.
And that's not how God wants you to be. So I would say that I'm definitely a spiritual person. I'm definitely a believer, but I'm also a believer that God is a forgiving and loving God, and that he loves everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at.
I grew up in a Baptist church.
Ooh.
So I understand exactly everything you're talking about. And I'm the first person to be critical about religion and people who are like extremely religious. But I have met so many people that are religious and they go to church frequently, and they're the greatest people ever.
I have met some really great people in churches. I definitely have some really great religious friends.
Yeah.
So it's more or less the institution of it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things too, talking about the institutionalized like churches, is that it's part of this old system that was kind of put in place. And one thing I'm starting to notice, because I have a brother who was a pastor, and he's doing his own thing too. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to like essentially reform the way churches are and the way they were. And that's one thing I've noticed, like with different people that have been on the podcast, is that like they're starting to join churches that are, I guess, different. Like they're not like the stereotypical Baptist church where you go and you have to wear a suit and a tie, and women have to wear dresses or skirts. And if you show up in pants, then you're judged. And it's almost like they're trying to be more accepting. And I think obviously there's still the churches out there that aren't. But I think with the progression of society and the way that people are trying to progress, I think churches are slowly starting to do that too.
Yeah, when my children were little, we belonged to Riverview for about 6 years.
Okay.
We had a falling out with them. Again, that's a whole other podcast. I don't want to talk about that one today, but I definitely will come back on and talk about that someday. But I've had definitely issues with just the how people turn out when they think that they're more godly than you.
Yeah.
That's the problem that I have.
Yeah, that's the problem I have too with churches.
Yeah.
I actually haven't really been to church since I was like 17.
Oof.
Yeah, I stopped
I tried
going.
a few different churches when my kids were little, and we were at Riverview the longest. But I don't like, and I think it coming from, this poor family of, a dysfunctional poor family, and how people viewed us at that time. It's kind of the same thing with church. Like if you don't come in looking a certain way or donating a certain amount, or
Yeah.
if you don't do
Yeah.
a certain, certain things, like you're kind of frowned upon. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and it was interesting too, because now that I look back, at the church that I went to growing up, the families that had the most money seemed to be able to do whatever they wanted in the church, and they had the most influence.
Yep.
And the people who didn't have this much money were kind of like stomped over.
Yeah.
And now that I look back, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely about money in some aspects.
Absolutely.
But I mean, just like everything else, money corrupts.
Absolutely. And so that's where my spirituality comes from, is like, sorry, let me get a drink.
You're fine. You're fine. Yeah, I don't have anything like against churches. I don't have anything against people going to churches. I just, again, like you had mentioned, I don't like how people are judgmental. Like, you should be able to go to church dressed in jeans and a t-shirt if you want and be accepted, because you're there for the same reason they're there.
Right.
And it shouldn't matter if you're wearing a suit or tie. Even if, I remember the pastor that pastored our church growing up, he was like, I don't remember why he said this, but I just remember him saying, if you were meeting the president of the United States, you would wear your best attire. And I'm like, no, if I was meeting the president of the United States today, I would wear probably what I typically wear, which would be like a t-shirt or like a nice shirt and a pair of jeans.
I'd probably wear this to like promote positive somebody.
Yeah, you should.
So, I mean, yeah,
it shouldn't matter.
And that's definitely where I'm at right now with religion, is that I believe God loves me just as much as, as somebody that goes to church every day. And I, in turn, want to spread that to other people. Like, no. And I think even though positive somebody's not religious, and I don't want it to be because I want to reach everybody, I also, the way that I feel about how God feels about me, and being, I am somebody because I am his child, their child. I want to then put that into positive somebody, like you are somebody, like you matter. And just like, and so I don't ever like shove religion down people's throat. I don't ever talk about that I'm a believer, but I definitely do throw it in there sometimes, like, that I am a believer and that I do believe that God loves everybody. And so I feel like in a way, I'm doing God's work just by being kind and giving and loving. And
well, that's what we're supposed to do as humans.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not religious, you're supposed to be giving back to your community. You're supposed to be helping other people. I mean, that's just part of being a part of a tribe.
Yes.
And the community is our tribe.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm a big, that's one thing, like, since I started this podcast, I never really was a part of the community, but then by doing this podcast and meeting all these different local businesses or nonprofits or artists, I'm like, it's important to be a part of the community that you live in, because if you're not making a difference in the community, who is?
Right.
And if everybody didn't do that, then who would?
So, what's really funny is that, I struggle with, can I do this? Can I, do this nonprofit? Can I make it what it is? Or why me? How do I believe that I can do this? And I go to therapy. I have to. I love therapy, just so everybody knows. It's maybe not for everybody, but I love it. My psychologist said, well, if not you, then who?
Yeah.
And he says it to me all the time. And I'm like, oh, you're right. And just to have, your therapist say, you can do this. Like, I believe in you. Like, that's a big deal. And so, if not you, then who?
Right.
Then who's going to do it?
And that's almost like a way of self-sabotage too.
It is.
By saying, well, I don't know if I'm capable of doing this, and I've been through so much. But the thing is like, everything you've gone through, somebody else might not have gone through that, but they could be inspired by your story.
Right.
Or, your story could be extremely influential to so many different people.
Yeah.
And people need that.
They do.
People need your experience.
Right.
Just as much as your experience was, it was probably terrible. And I don't know if you would ever go through it again, but it's defined on, who you are today.
Right.
It's created the person you are.
Right. I don't, of course I'm sad thinking about my childhood and things that we went through, but I definitely don't let it define me. And I learn and grow from it, and sharing my story. I do sometimes share it and sometimes I don't. It kind of just depends on where I'm at in life at that time. it definitely does inspire other people. I've seen that. And so that keeps me going to inspire other people. So I definitely will keep going with Positive Somebody, but I definitely want to put out there that it's been very trying because there's so many like ups and downs, and you know, something great happens and then something bad happens and something great, and you have to just keep going. And it's been 2 years, but it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So it's just like, keep going.
Yeah. And you got to look at the little things that you've accomplished. Like you've got your 501c3 and now what's next? And now you have board members. I mean, which is awesome. You have
So
people that
awesome.
believe in what you're doing.
Well, I want to tell you about one of my board members, who's a teacher who I have been friends with a long time. I had spoke to her before I even started it. And she said, you know, I don't know if, you know, positive packs are going to work. Kids are always on their phone. They want something on their phone. And she said, but I'll help you, you know, like with whatever. And so I gave her some positive packs to take in to school. And she's at a high school teacher. And she took in some positive packs and she had passed them out to a few people. And she told me about a couple of good stories where students were excited. But the turning point was when a student that wasn't supposed to graduate because they just had a rough life and just weren't doing the school thing like they were supposed to, she gave this student a positive pack. And when she graduated, she brought her breathes down, and she was like, thank you. And thank you for doing this. And so in turn, that teacher said, what do you need from me? I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So she's been helping, and she's, and it's those little stories that I keep hearing, those big stories. They're not little, they're big, where we are already making a difference in the community.
Even if you make a difference in one person's life, it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because that girl might not have graduated high school if she didn't have that.
Right. Right. So we've been hearing a lot of great stories and, great feedback from counseling centers and stuff like that. So we're in Holt, Lansing, Waverly. We sent 150 positive packs to Oxford High School after they had, the shooting there. And then we're again in Saginaw County. We're definitely branching out East Lansing. We have lots of things in the works with other school districts. So we're just trying to get out there, but definitely funding is a difficult thing. So that's the second part of the nonprofit is the phone calls with, hey, would you like to donate to support this school,
right,
stuff like that. So
that's not the fun stuff.
It's not the fun stuff, but it's the needed. It's the needed stuff.
That's what you need to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So
now you had mentioned that you guys are developing an app.
So my son, my two older boys, they both are, one has their degree in computer science and engineering, and then the other one's getting it. So they're very tech savvy. So they're working on our website right now. And then the app, super excited about the app. The app is going to be online journaling and positive mental health items. And what it's going to be is logins, and it'll have like a main login for teachers and counselors, social workers, and then it'll have sub logins for their students. And when they log into the app, they're going to be able to choose how they're feeling that day, happy, sad, angry, whatever. And then they have the option to write something about it, or, maybe color something with their finger about, like it'll send them to do other things. But then in turn, the teacher or the counselor or the social worker will be able to log in and see how all of their students are feeling that day. So, because sometimes, maybe, little Susie's not going to tell the teacher, hey, my parents were fighting last night and I didn't sleep at all.
Right.
They're not going to say that. The teacher's going to look and be like, she's tired. She, looks really exhausted.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a way that kids aren't going to go to the teacher and say, hey, I'm not feeling well. They don't do that. They're not going to talk to you, but they might write it online. They might,
That is such a great idea.
Yeah, we're super excited about that.
If you use the first 5 minutes of school every single day for every class to log in, journal how your night before or
anything
the night before was, and or just talk about how you're doing, and you share what your mood is.
Yep.
That's a super good idea.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. it's going to take a while, like everything else. It's a
Yeah.
marathon, not a sprint. And so that's definitely, Alden's in his senior year. So it's something he's going to be working on throughout his senior year as our intern. So
Very cool.
I know.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for what you guys are doing, and I look forward to
Yes.
hearing more progress and
Yeah.
having you back. I noticed you have a lot written down there. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
Well, it's funny because I know that this is supposed to be organic and a conversation, but I find myself when I go and talk to people that I always forget something. And, my kids are like, oh, you can tell them next time, just make another and go next time. And I think we touched base on most everything, what we're about. We're about promoting positive mental health, by encouraging positive coping and positive outlets. So I think a couple of things I didn't mention is that we are looking for different partnerships. Like I'm meeting with the Lansing Art Gallery because we want to promote positive outlets for children. And so they're going to be one of our positive outlet partners. So if kids want to learn how to, paint or draw or something, they have classes. So we're looking to partner with all these different places. And that is the other program that we have. It's called the Roberson Bell Grant. And what that is we want to promote positive outlets for children. So that's art, music. They just want to learn how to ride a bike. They need a bike and the equipment and somebody to teach them. Like that's going to be where teachers or counselors can nominate a child and say this is what their positive outlet is going to be. Yeah. And then in the future, we want to have positive outlet camps and positive coping camps, just a day camp where kids can come and do the same thing that they did at our Family Mental Health Fun Day. But when they leave the camp, we want them to leave with their positive outlet. So they're going to tell us before they come that they want to learn how to play the guitar that I'm looking at in your corner over here, or they want to, whatever they want to learn, like we want them to leave with that. So we don't want our nonprofit to just be our positive packs. We want to be able to promote positive coping in all the ways, and positive outlets are huge. You have to be able to do your, physical health or, yoga, sports, stuff like that.
Some people don't have the resources available to have those outlets. Like if somebody wanted to learn how to play a guitar, but they can't afford to buy a guitar
or lessons.
Or lessons. How are they going to ever learn?
Right. And that's
they're not going to have the opportunity.
That's what we want to do. That's obviously the bigger picture thing. It's the growth thing that we want for positive somebody is to have that grant to be able to fund positive outlets for kids, because in turn, they're not going to choose the negative outlets.
Right.
They're not going to choose the group of friends that are getting them in trouble or, skipping school or not going to school or not focusing. They're going to be super excited about their positive outlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody who doesn't have the resources, and then now they do. They have something that they can dive into, and it's huge.
Huge. So it's so positive somebody's not going to be just positive packs. We want to be able to change mental health in all aspects for children and young adults, to be able to know mental health is not just therapy. It's not just, feeling like you're crazy. It literally is a daily thing. It's coping and, stuff like that it's different daily, and you have to just choose positive ways to cope, journaling and yoga and music. And it's just fostering that. We want to foster positive mental health in our community.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So
awesome. Is there anything else?
I think that I told you all of our, I think I told you all of our programs. I touched base on our, on our childhood and stuff like that. I mean, obviously there's more to the trauma that we didn't dig into, but that's okay. At least where it
that's one of those
started
things
from.
Yeah. That's one of those things that's difficult for me to try to like dig up on people when
Their trauma.
That, and especially when it has to deal with around like losing somebody.
Yeah.
Because then I'm like, oh boy, like I don't want to catapult somebody into like this deep depression.
Yeah. I can say with therapy and growth, I've been able to talk a lot more about my mom. I think people get kind of, like, whoa, she's very blunt and honest about it. So I'll tell people, when we start talking about families or something like that. And it kind of just comes out, my mom died, of suicide when I was 15, and they're like, oh, wow. How are you standing? People like get very shocked when you say that.
That is funny because I've never experienced anything like that, but I've experienced, like the loss of a parent by going into foster care and going through the whole system and whatnot. And so that's like my trauma. But whenever I'm telling somebody, I was just telling my neighbor today about it. And because she was like asking me where I was from. Mm-hmm. She's a newer neighbor. And I told her I'm from Florida and I went into the foster care system and I was adopted. And she was like looking at me like, how can you just say that? Just, it's just one of those things that when you've gone through the process of healing and now it's just a part of your story and who you are as a person, then you don't let it define you and you can use it as a way to, better yourself.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways it's an icebreaker.
It is. It absolutely is.
Because then people are like, oh, wow, that person is just as messed up as me, or at least was.
No, I feel like it also too just brings the normalization of different things that happen to people.
Yeah.
You were in foster care, you didn't let it define you.
Right.
I grew up with an abusive home with a mother who committed suicide or, died by suicide. Like, you don't let that define you.
Yeah.
You're not going to let that hold you back from what you want to do.
Well, the more and more I do this podcast too and talk to different people, I realize how messed up most people's lives are. And most people experience a lot of the same things. It's just before, like nobody talked about it. And like with the mental health crisis and people, feeling like they should make a positive change by talking about their stories, like it's becoming more known that these were some of the tendencies of the past. And it's crazy to hear other people's stories and it's like, wow, that's just like my story.
Right. And as a child too, I had friends from middle school and high school that said, I never knew you went through that. I never knew that your home life was like that, or they never knew. And so now that I talk about it, they're like, wow,
how are you still here?
Right.
How are you able to be this positive?
Right.
Yeah.
And, and I always tell people that what I did to come out of it, one of the items that I did to come out of it is I watched other people. I watched my friends' parents who had good marriages, or I watched my friends, grandparents or, different people doing positive things. And I kind of took all these positive things from other people and kind of just was like, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. I like that. I like that. Wow. And so that's kind of how I turned my thought process around. Like, I'm not positive every day all the time, but I try really hard to just have that positive mindset when I go into something. And I when it comes to like Mother's Day and Father's Day and stuff like that, I find myself calling people that have made an impact in my life, friends, parents, and, neighbors and stuff like that. And I'll just tell them, I picked up this motherly thing from you, and I just want to thank you so much for that. And I think gratitude's very big too, because I try so hard to tell people how thankful I am for them. And so I'll call an old teacher that I had and tell them, how much I appreciated this or that or whatever. And so I just picked up the different, I guess, positive qualities from other people.
That's important. Mm-hmm. That's a really good perspective and I guess trait to have, because not a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Most people, again, let their situation define who they are, and they're like, well, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. I'm trying to think of like if I did that, because like there's definitely been people in my life that I'm like, I like that about them.
Right.
And so I don't know if I've tried emulating that.
You probably did and just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's definitely people that have influenced me and they like inspire the crap out of me.
Yeah.
But I like that you actively
yes,
let those people know.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely try so hard to thank them and let them know. And if they're not here any longer, I reached out to one of my counselors' children, and that's where our Roberson Bell grant comes from. I had a counselor, Mrs. Bell, who was a good, positive impact in my life. And so I let her children know, like, oh my God, she was so great, to me. And I just want to thank you, tell you how important she was in my life. And I had a friend whose mom was so important to me, and I made sure I let her know, like, your mom was so great to me,
Yeah.
And I just, I wanted you to know that she really impacted my life. And so I definitely let people know. I have one of my best friends, her dad was really great, and not having like great male role models in my life, I definitely let him know, and he got pretty emotional about that. But I'm just so thankful for the people who I have come across that are super positive and, are a positive influence,
Yeah.
And that's another thing with, positive somebody is just letting people know that they can find positive in life. They just might have to search for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't typically have to search too hard.
Yeah.
You can
just have to
find
look
it.
in the right places.
Yeah.
You have to look in the right places.
You have to have the right people in your life too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thankful that there's people that made me feel like I was somebody when I never felt like that, at home. So,
well, that's a perfect name. Positive somebody.
it is, people are always like, positive somebody. Like, what is that? Well, you don't want to say somebody positive, because that's just,
it's more individual.
yeah. And this is just, it definitely is, that you are somebody and that you can have a positive life. Like you can choose a positive way. Like you're doing this podcast and you have this great family. Like, yeah, you can choose that.
Yeah, you can.
You're like me. We chose positive lives. It's
you can
important.
choose. Yeah, you can choose.
You have the choice.
You definitely have a choice. Yeah, I have so much to say on that. I don't want to get into it.
No. And you know what's funny is because I pick up positive, I pick up little, positive traits and things from people. I am so aware of like people talking and stuff like that, or just, I'm like such a people watcher and listener and stuff. I was taking a walk one day and this lady was on her phone and I was kind of struggling with, getting positive somebody started and, can I do it? And it's stressful and different things. And, I wanted to go back to school, which I'm in my second year of college, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. And I work full time. My kids are grown, so I can like do that now. But I was listening to her on her conversation just as we were walking, and she was like, you have to decide if you're going to live your life for good or for evil. I'm telling you this right now. She was like yelling at somebody. That phrase has stuck with me.
Wow.
Are you going to live your life for good or are you going to live it for evil? Like you're at this crossroads. You have a choice. Wow. What are you going to choose? So just little things like that stick out to me. And so it's funny because I didn't even know who this person was. I have no idea who this person was, but I think about that. I'm like, this is your choice. Yes, positive somebody and getting it started has been hard, but you can choose this. Like, just like I chose to raise my kids a different way.
Right.
And to break that cycle. And, you can choose.
You really can.
You can.
And once you make that choice, your life just feels so much better.
So much
better.
So much better.
I like that. You can choose to live for good or for evil.
I love that.
Like that.
I love that term. And that's just stuck with me.
And the thing is, like, even if you chose to not do positive somebody, like, it may feel evil to you that you're not contributing to it.
Yeah.
Because then it's a part of who you are.
It is. Yeah.
Even though it's not evil.
Right.
You're just not contributing to the community anymore.
I mean, I'm definitely proud of myself for coming out the other side. I mean, my husband and I have been married. We didn't get married until after we had our second son, but we've been married.
That was like me.
Really?
Yeah. That's a sin, just so you know.
I know. The pastor that did our wedding was like, they did it backwards, but at least they still did it. Even though we did that, like we decided, like that we wanted to, just to be positive. So, and we're so proud that we chose to stay together. We've been married over 20 years.
Wow.
And our kids are phenomenal. They're so great. They're just so great. And they're so helpful with positive somebody. My middle son and his girlfriend they designed our weather emojis.
That's cool.
My youngest son, he packs so many positive packs with me. We have to pack 150 positive packs for Waverly High School tomorrow.
Whoa.
So I'm like, all right, Evan, you got to help me with that. So, and they do it. They help.
That's cool. And that's good for kids to get involved in something like that, because then they know they're making a difference, even though like they didn't start it, but they're part of the process.
They're part of it. And they're proud of it.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, they're really proud
because they're making an impact on other people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It is exciting just to choose positive.
let's end it with that.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
doing
you
this.
so much.
This was fun, and we'll
Yeah.
definitely do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's great.
Absolutely.